Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts and give praise unto your name. Welcome into this place. Welcome into your chosen vessel. You desire to abide in the praises of your people. So we lift our hands as we lift our hearts, as we offer up this praise unto your name.
Welcome back as we have come back to this portion of our Torah class. We want to pick up where we left off. I pray that everyone had a phenomenal lunch, and I pray that your fellowship with your Ak and your Koi, with your Mishpakat, that it was awesome. And now we have returned so that we can pick up with chapter 10, of Devarim. We want to pick up as this is our Torah portions for our Shabbat. Ekev, consequently. We started in the chapter, Devarim chapter 7, and we're now in chapter 10. As we looked at the discourse, Moshe speaking to the children of Yasharal because they are getting ready to enter into the promised land. And he is bringing forth the word, and he is talking to them about their past mistakes and their past sins. And he's bringing them to a place to understand what is required of them and what is expected of them in this time for them to prepare to go into into the promised land. So we're going to pick up at chapter 10, and we're going to read verses starting with verse 1, and we're going to read 8 verses. And it is so.
And it is so.
Chapter 10, Akev, consequently, starting at verse 1.
At that time, Yahuwah said unto me, carve out yourself 2 tables of stones like the ones before, and come up unto me into the mount, and make yourself an ark of wood. And I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. And I made an ark of shittim wood, and carved out 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tables in my hand. And he wrote on according to the first writing, the 10 commandments which Yahuwah spoke unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly, and Yahuwah gave them unto me. And I turned myself and came down from the mount, and put the tables in the ark which I had made, and there they be as Yahuwah commanded me. And the children of Yasharal took their journey from Beroth of the children of Joachim to Mosera. There Aharon died, and there he was buried, and Eleazar his son ministered in the Cohen's office in his stead. From there they journeyed into Gudgoda, and from Gudgoda to Yotbata, a land of rivers of Mayim. At that time Yahuwah separated the tribe of Levi to bear the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, to stand before Yahuwah to minister unto him, and to Baruch his name unto this day. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, he's giving his discourse, and he's talking to them concerning the things that are that have taken place, and preparing them. Now let's look at this. And he's reminding them of everything that has taken place. At that time, Yahuwah said unto me, hew thee 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and come up unto me into the mount. Now, once again, after the 40 days which Moshe spent in prayer, and Yahuwah was reconciled with him. Now, the first 40 days was to go and get the first set. The second 40 days was when he had to go back up and get the second set of commandments. Because remember, when he was coming down the mountain, he dropped them. There are many scholars and theologians that believe that the weight of the anointing that was on the enchantment as he was coming down the mountain when he heard on caused him to drop them. Because when Yahuwah created them, they were made, according to some, out of a blue sapphire. It was out of sapphire. Transparent. And so this time he said, and you're going to bring it up to me. Now, it still took 40 days. The first 40 days when he got the first set, the second 40 days for the second set. He said, now you're going to bring it up and I'm going to write on it, but this time you're going to do the work for hewing it out and bringing it up here. So he had to get that done. Then the second thing we see, and recalling this, Moshe intended to inform the people that although Yahuwah had forgiven them the sin of the golden calf, the forgiveness was incomplete. It was not completed yet. Now, some will say, well, why wasn't it completed? You have to understand he had forgiven them, but as we continue to read it, as we read before, we saw what they had to do. They had to create an altar, and they had to go through the sacrifices because they had to be clean. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
There was a lot of things that were taken on at that time, but he is reminding them of these things. Make thee an ark of wood. This ark was a temporary one made to house the tablets for the time being, not the permanent one, which was made by Bezalel for the tabernacle. No such instruction was given to Moshe with regard to the first tablets, because they were destined to be broken. In the view, the text is referring to the ark which Bezalel made. Now, first, it was not because Yahuwah is all-knowing. Don't ever underestimate him. Don't ever think that he does not know everything at the end, at the beginning. And so here it is. There wasn't an ark that was to be made because he knew they were going to be broken. He knew that they were going to be dropped. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Yahuwah is all-knowing. And he knew. Now, you have to understand something. My question a while back was, why would you drop? Why would the covenant or the instructions be dropped if they were supposed to get them? You have to understand they would not receive the instructions. Not only that, you have to understand the instructions, are not a punishment. Right. Many people, especially people in Christianity, believe that the instructions, which was now termed as the law of Yahuwah, is a punishment and a restriction upon us as a people, which is false. There is no truth in that, and there never will be any truth in that. The truth is, it is his instructions that were given to us and only us. Right. Now, many would try to rebuttal that, and many would fight against it. The reason why it was given unto us, and if you read and go back, he said, I've given it unto you, and no other people has his instructions but us. It was for us to live out the instructions so other nations would see the wisdom and the purpose and the power of Yahuwah manifested through our lives. This is important for us to understand, because when it comes down to it, once again, the commandments were given unto us, given to our ancestors, and our ancestors failed to comply and they failed to live by it. So once again, Yahuwah is never failing. Right. He never fails, but they were broken, because you have to understand, it is not a curse and it's not a punishment to receive his instructions. Right. At that time, you have to look at it in this manner. They were not worthy to receive his instructions. Now, someone say, but that sounds kind of crazy, because if they needed these instructions, then why in the world would they not be given to him? You have to understand, before they were written, he spoke it to them at Mount Sinai. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
He spoke it to them. And then he was going to put it in writing. They didn't even receive it. So you have to understand, once again, the problem with this is that they were not going to receive it. And his instructions are precious. That's right. and priceless.
That's right.
So you just don't go giving the instructions of Abba Yahuwah to any and everybody. Remember, he tells us in the writings in Metik Yahu, don't cast your pearls to the swines, or they will turn around and rend you. And don't put your jewels on dogs. That's a character of people. So we don't go and do that. We have to be ever so careful of these things. And so, once again, this is what happened. This is what took place. This is what took place. He's reminding them of what took place for them to get a second set, because the first set was dropped and broken, bringing them into a remembrance. The meaning is I commanded Bezalel to make. So he commanded him to make. In the ark which I made, that is which he had made after coming down from Sinai, bringing them into remembrance. And there they are. And there they were. The tablets remained in the temporary ark until the tabernacle was completed. After that, in accordance with divine instructions, they were transferred to the permanent ark. Once again, just temporary to get them to their destination. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
From Birak Binyak to Mosera. Since in the account of Yasharal's journey, Bemidbar 33 and 33:31. The order of the two places is reversed. One must conclude that Birak Ber Yakan here is not identical with the Bina Yakin or Bnei Yakin. There nor is Mosera here identical with Mosera there. But what is this? But what is the chapter is named Kadesh, verse 37. Is here named Birak bin Yakan and Mosera. Here is another name for Mount Hor, on which Haran is reported to have died. Take both texts to refer to the same places and suggest that Mount Hor extended over an area of many miles. Opposite there were situated the 7 places from Mosera to Kadesh, to Kadesh. After ascending that part of Mount Hor, which was opposite Mosera, or perhaps that part was also called Mosera, Haran died. Hence, the statement there at Mosera, Haran died, to reconcile the two passages, quotes a legend that when Haran died on Mount Hor, the divine presence departed from Yasharal, and they feared attack by the king of Arad. They appointed a leader to take them back to Mitzrayim and retracted their steps for some distance. Now you have to understand, I've read this before and I've seen this, and many have stated that many tried to go back and they ended up dying because they didn't want to move forward, because they were afraid of what was going to take place. And so what ended up happening, many of them tried to leave, and they took about 8 steps. And in their time, and this is, what was his name? I can't think of his name. But this is where we find out, if you look at the line of the Zedekites, which are from not Eleazar, Eleazar, from Eleazar, which was Haran's son. Now, when you look, many of them that tried to go back, they had to stop them from going back. Because if they would have gone back, then that's what Yahuwah was going to do in talking about destroying them. And the people would have said, well, you were only brought out, Yahuwah only brought them out to kill them. That would have also been put in place, that he only brought them out basically to cause them to be destroyed and scattered. And the reason why, once again, you have to look at certain things, is that here we see that they could not go back, because just if Yahuwah would have taken their lives, it would have been the same thing if they would have gone back. Because people would have looked and said, well, how is it that he would be able to bring them this far and then they leave and go back? Are y'all following me? Very important for us to understand these things. And so they could not go back, because it would have altered and it would have caused a lot of problems if they tried to go back to Mitzrayim. So in the midst of them going through these changes, some people ended up dying. Some people ended up dying during that time and during their transition because they refused to stand and listen. So very important for us to look at that. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
There Haran died. The introduction at this point of the verse recalling the place where Haran died is intended to demonstrate that Moshe's supplication on his behalf had been accepted and Haran lived on until the end of the 40 years wandering. So he lived on, but he still ended up having to live with knowing that he was only going to be able to live for so long and then he was going to die. That he too would not enter into the promised land. So once again, we're seeing Moshe is recounting the things that were done under his leadership or in his time of leadership, but he's telling them and showing them the best way to get the Baruch on your life is walk in obedience. You have to walk in obedience. You have to walk in compliance to his instructions for your life, for our lives. You cannot do it any other way. Any other way, we forfeit because we're walking in disobedience. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Now, once again, you have to realize and understand these are the ones that were zealous, very zealous for Yahuwah. And they were not going to let the people go back and cause there to be a reproach against his name. This is how we have to look at it even in this respect. When we come out of Christianity, when you go back into that way, into that lifestyle, you basically bring a reproach upon yourself and upon the things of Abba Yahuwah. Somebody would say, how be? Because you have just said in your heart of hearts, well, this is not right. Even though I know as I walked in Christianity and I've read the writings and I see where truth abides, I still myself can't walk forward. I've got to go back to that what is familiar. You have just brought a reproach against yourself and even against Yahuwah. Because you have to understand, when he brought us out to liberate us. He brought us out so that we could have the relationship that we desire. Now, I have said this before. When I got into Christianity, my desire was to serve Yahuwah, the Creator. I didn't get into Christianity to serve a made-up God. I didn't get in there to serve a made-up deity. I didn't get in there to serve anybody but Yahuwah. At the time, I did not know that his name was Yahuwah. I was only going off of what I was told. I was only going off of what I was taught. But then when he started dealing with me, he would leave me breadcrumbs, and every now and then I'd pick up a breadcrumb here, there, and so forth. Because I was so steeped in Christianity, I was afraid to let go of that system because that was the only thing I knew. That was the only thing that I saw that could bring me liberty and bring me what I thought was real salvation. Right. Until I started praying and I started seeking Abba Yahuwah. And he began to show me, my name is not God. That's a title. And he began to take us through phases. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because if you truly hunger after thirst, if you thirst and hunger after uprightness, you shall be filled. That's Matthew 5:8. You shall be filled. I was hungry all of my life that I walked into that way of life. I was hungry. And I wouldn't be satisfied with that. And I kept being hungry, and I kept being thirsty, and I kept diving, and I kept putting out my cup to be filled. And he filled my cup, and he showed me truth. And the number one scripture that always remains in my heart is Matthew 24:15. I've come not the sheep of Yasharal. When I heard that, that was all I needed. He didn't say I came for the church. He said, I've come for the prostituting sheep of Yasharal. It is important that we understand, once again, the importance of serving him. And if we try to go back, what happens is the world looks and says, well, then whoever you're serving can't be real. Because you've just shown us you have to go back into that what is false in order to be satisfied, in order to be complete. If we were not complete before now, going back to it, it's not going to make you complete now. Right. Completion comes through serving and walking in truth. Right. That may be hard for many people to digest, but it is the truth. Because you can't learn about Yahuwah when you are learning about a false deity. Right. You can't learn about Yahuwah's son, Yahush, when you are learning about a false deity. You can't learn his ways and learn his ordinances and his statutes when you are being taught to fear them, and when you are being taught to run away from them. When you are taught that you don't even have to allow this to be established in your heart, you can't learn from that. Someone asked me the other night, can we learn from church people? No, we cannot. And I know many of people would get angry with me, and that's fine. But if you don't believe what I'm saying, seek it out for yourself. Right. And you will see. Because truth is never going to wrong anybody. Truth is always going to remain the same. You cannot learn from a system that constantly teaches you to be disobedient against the principles and the precepts and the ordinances of Abba Yahuwah. That teach you Sunday or the first day is the day of Sabbath rest. Teaches you that the day that you're supposed to rest is on the first day. That teaches you that Christmas is the day of the birth of Yahushua. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That teaches you that Easter is what represents Yahushua. Not so. You cannot, if you are following in this, and just say, somebody say, but what about people that are in Christianity? The problem is, in Christianity, until you come away from that, come out of that, you will continue to be walking in error and walking contrary to truth. Because Christianity is not going to teach you about Yahuwah. It's not going to happen. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's not going to happen. And this is why we can't go backwards. If you go backwards, everything that you sought for, everything you worked for, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. We can't go back. I refuse to go backwards.
Right.
I know too much to go backwards. I will never go backwards. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, listen what's taking place. From thence they journey unto good God. This place is identical with Hor Haggid Bag or Haggid Gad. The Midbar 33 and 32. According to the version in Bemidbar, they halted also at Bina Yakan, a place between Morsera and Gudad. No mention is made here of the intervening halt, since the purpose of the text is to state that they remained for some time in the two places, Gudgad and Yatba, because they were rich in brooks of water. They were less concerned over Haran's death than hurrying on to places with a great supply of water. It kind of makes you wonder, too, it kind of shows you that many times people stay in one place because they see the little flow, when in actuality, there's something better that Yahuwah would have for us. But we can't move on because we stuck in that place. You know, we call that stuck in a rut. And so we don't want to be in a rut. Listen to what I'm saying in the things concerning Yahuwah.
That's right.
He desires to expand our thoughts. He desires to expand the things about him to us. We can't move forward, though, if we're constantly vacillating and going backwards. You can't go forward looking backwards.
Right.
You can't do it. And you can't go forward with your hand constantly reaching back unless you are running, and none of us are running and passing a baton.
Right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
So you can't move forward constantly reaching backwards. You have to move forward and reach forward. And the more we reach forward, the more we're open and the more he can give to us. But the longer we constantly reaching back, we cannot. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So he's bringing them to a place to understand you have to look and move forward. You cannot continue to walk in the same era you walked in. Because if you do, you will not progress. And this is the way it has to be. Once again, many times people get upset with that, but you can't use the same things that you once used.
Right.
Especially when it diametrically opposes truth. We can't do it. So it's important that we develop and grow. Develop and grow. Grow and develop. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Very important. Now, at that time, when Yahuwah ordered Moshe to make the second tablets of stone, he appointed the tribe of Levi to the exalted position of ministering in the tabernacle. The verse refers to their appointment when they did not join in the worship of the calf, and alludes to it here because they are also held aloof from the sin of the Yashraelites when they retreated. So once again, you had these things that were going on. You know how when stuff started happening and you got people doing everything, you got people going in different directions. This is kind of what you can look at us as being in. You got those of us that are trying to move forward, and then you got those of us that are trying to go backwards. We're trying to retreat because we don't really know and understand how to ground ourselves so that we can be prepared. These are things that are important to us as a people to move forward. We can't move forward if we are constantly vacillating behind us. We can't do it. And let me tell you something, evil communication corrupts great manner.
That's right.
You cannot say you want to move forward and continue to talk with a people or with a person that doesn't want to move forward. You hear this, and I've seen it before. People that don't want to be saved and don't want to be helped, you have to let Yahuwah help them because you can't.
That's right.
You hear horror stories about people going and helping people, and then they themselves lose their lives, only for them people to go right back to doing what they were doing. That was a waste of precious life. Somebody would say, but they lived, but yet they continue to go back into what they were supposedly saved out of.
Right.
And the person that did it lost their lives. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We have to be careful with these things, very careful with them. Very careful. So we have to look at what was going on. It was given into the Levites' hands to carry this because of everything that had taken place. He's setting order so people can understand. Their people, our people at that time could understand. When you get into the promised land, you cannot do these things that you once did.
That's right.
You can't do it. Very important. Are we understanding?
Yes.
All right. To bear the ark. This was the function of the Levites who were not priests. To Baruch in his name. This refers to Baruching the community with uplifted hands by those Levites who were also priests. Until this day, the time when Moshe spoke these words. Praise, once again, with our hands lifted up, even with the clapping of our hands. We're supposed to praise him.
Right.
And the thing that ought to provoke us to praise him the more is that Torah has been restored to its rightful owners. We are the Torah's natural habitation. It is to tabernacle in me. It is to tabernacle in you. We are the Torah's natural habitation. Whenever you plant a seed and its natural habitation, it can't do anything but do what? Bring forth. And the only thing you have to do is be the ground that is yielded to allow it to do what it's supposed to do. You don't have to go and do any extra. All you have to do is comply.
That's right.
And the Torah is going to do the rest. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is important for us to understand if we're going to truly see the Baruch of Yahuwah upon our lives. All right, let us finish reading, please. Starting at verse 9, we're going to read 8 verses again. Verse 9.
Verse 9 in chapter 10.
Mhm.
Wherefore Levi hath no part nor inheritance with his brethren. Yahuwah is his inheritance, according as Yahuwah your power promised him. And I stayed in the mount according to the first time 40 days and 40 nights, and Yahuwah hearkened unto me at that time also. And Yahuwah would not destroy you. And Yahuwah said unto me, Arise, take thy journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land which I swear unto their fathers to give unto them. And now, Yasharal, what does Yahuwah your power require of you? But to fear Yahuwah your power, to walk in all his ways, and to ahab him, and to serve Yahuwah your power with all your heart and with all your soul. To keep the commandments of Yahuwah and his statutes, which I command thee this day for your uprightness. Behold, the Shemayim and the Shemayim of Shemayims is Yahuwah's, your power, the earth also with all that therein is. Only Yahuwah has a delight in your fathers to Ahab them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. It is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, look at how he is, once again, talking to them, and he is bringing his discourse. He is encouraging them. You have to understand, if he didn't have them and he didn't want to see them move forward, he would have never, ever given them the encouragement to stand in truth.
That's right.
Because he could have been disgruntled with them and could have said, y'all the reason why I can't go in. Because y'all messed up, and then y'all make me get angry with you and messed up. You hear people say, y'all don't want to make me say it wrong. No, if you said something wrong or did something wrong, it's because you said it or did it wrong.
Right.
You have to be willing not to accept that. Now, Lewite had no portion. Their service was at the altar, and they were not free to give their time to plowing and sowing. Do y'all hear me?
Yes.
Now, once again, this is why people have to understand why they didn't have an inheritance. It's because they spent their time around the altar. They spent their time studying. They spent their time in the presence of Yahuwah. In the day and time we live in, many of us that are Moras and those that are Mores desire to spend more time around the altar and desire to spend more time in study. But at that time they had it because they got a portion of that which belonged to Yasharal.
Right.
But when you're in a time as we are now, and people get the mentality, well, no, we ain't giving nobody nothing. We ain't sowing nothing. And I'm not saying, and please understand, I'm not asking anybody for anything. But you have to understand, when you know who you are, there are certain things that come with the territory.
That's right.
It is. A workman is worthy of his hire.
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. And so they didn't have time to be in the fields plowing and sowing. They had to stay in the presence of Abba Yahuwah. And it's very important for us to understand that, so that we don't get in our head, well, they just weren't supposed to be there. No, they didn't have an inheritance because they were with Yahuwah, doing what they needed to do and what was commanded of them. And when the children of Yasharal would tithe, and when they got what they got, they didn't have to worry about lacking. They didn't have to worry about going without, because they understood their responsibility was to give and to support. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's important for us to understand. Yahuwah is their inheritance. The Levites received their daily food or portion from the king's house in portions of the offering. So we know, if you look back and you even look at Levite and you see where they gave and the things they did, a portion of that went to them. So they didn't have to worry about struggling. They didn't have to worry about not having, because whenever Yahshua gave, they knew when they offered it up, they had a portion of that would come to them. Now you have those that give, but they give to certain ones. And trust me, I appreciate everyone that sows towards this ministry. I do. Because when you sow, that helps me to get better material. Not only better material, but it helps me also to be able to prepare to get things to you. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And this is being real. You desire, and we desire to do things, but we do what we are able or capable of doing. It takes, it takes that. I have my Torah portions. I have my apocryphas. I don't have just one, I have two. So I say, why do you need two? Because you have to understand, each one is going to have something different in it. So I have more than one, I have two. So while I'm researching and reading in one, I'm also researching and reading in the other one.
Right.
So once again, it's very important that we understand why things at that time and why things today should be set up the same way. You never go to a restaurant and the chef is ill prepared. The chef always has what he or she needs to prepare the food. They have the right amount of pots, they have the right amount of food, they have everything they need. And guess what? They always have enough. So if they have small group, they are able to feed that small group. And if they have a number that they can't count, they still have enough to feed them. Because they understand their duty is to feed, is to serve. Are you following me?
Yes.
And this is what they were able to do. So once again, I appreciate everybody that has sown into this ministry and continues to sow. And you can be assured that it's not wasted. It is not wasted. It goes into helping with supplies, and it goes into helping me do what I have to do, and to help us as a people do what we have to do.
That's right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. So once again, we're looking at the structure, not destroy thee, and so prevent you from entering the promised land, which I swore. If not for you who was promised to the patriarchs, they would not have entered the land because of their frequent revolts. They would not have entered because every time they were revolting, every opportunity, they saw an opportunity to get in something, they were getting into it. Every time they ran across somebody that was doing something, instead of them drawing them, they were drawing them. Instead of them standing up, they would always fall prey to their own sensational desires and appetite to continue to walk in error and foolishness. But in spite of that, Yahuwah may remain committed to his promise unto our ancestors and forefathers, which now has come down to us. This is why it's important that we maintain our walk. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now listen what it says, but to fear Yahuwah, thy Savior. From this text, it is derived that the doctrine that everything is in the power of Yahuwah, except man's fear of Yahuwah, which is left to his or her free will. And that makes a lot of sense. Because if somebody has to make you fear them, it is not real fear. It is because of you're basically putting a person in a position to where you have them under fear. Why do we fear Yahuwah? Why do we reverence him? One, because we ahab him. And two, because we know what he's able to do. He's able to destroy not just your flesh, but your ruach. And he's able to make you a byword. He's able to make people forget you even existed. He's able to destroy us that people won't even remember us. There will never be a thought about us. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We fear him because we ahab him and because we know what he's able to do. Not because he's standing over us twisting our arms. There is consequences to our disobedience. But are y'all following me?
Yes.
It is our will that we fear him based upon the knowledge that we have of him. Are y'all following me? Am I making sense?
Yes. Yes.
Very important for us to understand this. Because you know people that really fear him. Because those of us that really fear him, we reverence him. And we watch how we do things.
Right.
You have to watch how you do. And even if we're not sure, we wait. And even if we are sure, we still make sure that it is in his will that we do or say what we want to say or do. Because we fear him. The greatest fear we ought to ever have is losing him. Are y'all following?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Losing him. Losing that relationship. Especially when you know, when you were outside of truth, you were not in truth. We thought we were in truth, and we thought what we had was legitimate and real. But until you come to this side and truly know truth, you have not known truth.
Right.
I don't want to lose that. That's the thing we ought to fear the most, is losing that relationship and losing out with him. Right there. Are you following me?
Yes.
Because people have money, people have substance, but do they have a relationship with you? There was a question posed one time. We say we know him, but does he know us? We can say we know him all day long, but does he really know us? I don't ever want it to be that he doesn't know me or he forgets me.
That's right.
That's what I fear about him. See, because he's able to do whatever he wants to do. And he can change whatever he wants to change.
That's right.
He doesn't need our permission. He doesn't get permission from nobody. He does what he does because he is the creator. So we don't want to find ourselves being losing out because of foolishness. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
It is our free will, and we must do it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Unto Yahuwah thy Savior belongeth the Shemayim. He is the sovereign of the universe who is esteemed by the whole of creation, is not in need of Yasharal's obedience and worship. Only because of the merits of our forefathers, Yahuwah chose Yasharal of all the nations as the custodian of his instructions for our greatness. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
I can understand that. He doesn't need our worship and he doesn't need our obedience. But we ought to be thankful that he wants it.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Look, you have to understand, it's not going to undo the show, and it ain't going to make it stronger because we praise and worship him. But it does show that we appreciate him and we hop him.
Yes. That's right.
That is what we need to understand. Are y'all following me?
Yes. Yes.
He delights in the praises of his people because he inhabits our praises. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
This is important for us to understand and walk in it, and never let anybody make us change that. He chose their seed after them, even you. Not Ishmael or Esau, although the seed of the patriarch, they are the seed of the patriarchs. But you alone were chosen by Yahuwah as his people. Now you have to understand, that is phenomenal.
Yes.
Because we know Esau, Papa was Isaac. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Ishmael, his papa was Abraham. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And each one of them had a relationship with Yahuwah. But yet they were rejected and we were received. That's phenomenal.
Yes.
That's phenomenal. As it is this day, this relationship between Yahuwah and Yasharal will remain for all time. It will remain through us for all time. But never forget, the relationship should never be one-sided. The moment we walked in the truth and we said we do obey and we accept it, we have to continue to work at building a healthier and stronger relationship with him. The great times, the bad times, the times of indifference, the times of rejection, the times of ostracism, criticism, it is still important for us to understand how we are to govern ourselves and how we are to walk in these things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. Very, very important for us to understand. All right, let us read. In chapter 11, and we are reading to 1 to 25. Let's do 6 verses apiece. Well, let's do 5 verses.
Leviticus chapter 11, verse 1 through 5. Ahab Yahuwah your power and keep his requirements, his decrees, his statutes, and his commands always. Remember today that your children were not the ones who saw and experienced the discipline of Yahuwah your power, his majesty, his mighty hand, and his outstretched arm. The signs he performed and the things he did in the heart of Mitzrayim, both to Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and to his whole country. What he did to the Mitzrayim army, to his horses and chariots, how he overwhelmed them with the waters of the Reed Sea, and as they were pursuing you, and how Yahuwah brought lasting ruin on them. It was not your children who saw what he did for you in the desert until you arrived at this place. Continue 6.
Mhm.
And what he did to Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab the Reubenite, when the earth opened its mouth right in the middle of all Yasharal and swallowed them up with their household, their tents, and every living thing that belonged to them. And it is so.
And it is so. Tell me that won't scare the crap out you. You standing up there talking and they back up there doing, and the earth opens up and swallows everything about them, and it closes up as if they were never there. That's enough to scare your hair to reach to the bottom of your feet. That's enough to scare you straight. But even in that, watch this, many still rebelled. Many still rebel. Even after seeing that, they still rebel. And look at what he says. Now, this is important. All of it is. But listen to this. Therefore, thou shalt ahab Yahuwah thy Savior and keep his charge and his statute and his ordinances and his commandments. How many times? always. That means no matter where we are, always means always,
That's right.
without end. It does not matter if we're there in in Jerusalem, or if we're here in America. We are to always keep his commands, his charges, his statutes, his ordinances, and his commands, always. Never give allowance for saying we can't keep it. Never give allowances for saying it can't be done, because the moment you say it can't be done, you've already set yourself up for a major fall. He wouldn't have said to do it always if it was impossible. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Where obedience is, there will be always a will. Where obedience is, there will always be a way made.
That's right. Yes.
Because you have a will to do so, you have a desire to do so. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
And this so. Now listen what he said. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children that have not known, and that have not seen the chastisement of Yahuwah your power, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his outstretched arm. Always look at that outstretched arm. Yahush. Now listen at this once again. Very important for us to understand. He's talking to the children of those that were left. Now they have children. In other words, this right here reference is being made to them. Now you saw what happened. Now teach your children so they don't fall into that same manner. Don't let your children do what you saw. Your children have not experienced this. Don't let them experience this through your disobedience. Don't let them see this. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand these things. Very, very important. Now, and his signs and his works, which he did in the midst of Mitzrayim unto Pharaoh, the king of Mitzrayim, and unto all his land. Very important that we don't allow, once again, these things to slip our remembrance. Because in the moment that we do, we're going to lose. We're going to lose horribly. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
What he did unto you in the wilderness, in sending the manna. This is an allusion to the punishments, of Yasharal, that suffered at the hand of Yahuwah for their sins. The lesson to be learned is that only those who are committed to Yahuwah's law may count on his support. We can't count on his support if we're not walking in obedience. Once again, I made the analogy earlier. You can't expect to have something and you are a disobedient child. What parent really would give a disobedient son or daughter that which can ruin them, or that which is great and they are disobedient? You wouldn't. Because you're teaching that child how to be obedient, and you're teaching them what? A standard to have.
That's right.
Look, back then they didn't have what we have. Basketball Wives and Wives of Atlanta, and what's the rest of this old foolishness? Reality shows. And truthfully, we ought to never have to compete with these things.
Right.
None of us. Your children should not have to sit and be deciding whether they want to be in Shabbat class or whether they want to be watching TV.
Right.
It is what we instill in them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That determines where they are going to go. Very important for us to understand. Somebody may say, well, I don't have any children, but if you have nieces and nephews that are in truth, and even if they're not in truth, you still can tell them truth. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand these things, because nobody will be exempt. We have to walk in it. Are y'all following me? What he did unto Dathan and Abiram. Now, no mention is made of the destruction of Korah and his associates, because they had offered strange fire for incense. Since this is forbidden at all times, the penalty which followed is not enumerated among the exceptional events which happened in the wilderness. They offered strange fire, which was wrong. And we are never to do that. Ever, ever. Now that followed them, literally, which were at their feet. That is, a man's money which places him on his feet. The phrase means on their account, or may be understood literally. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We have to be careful, once again, of all these things. But your eyes have seen. This is the continuation of verse 2. He is addressing not the children who heard of Yahuwah's action, but men and women who had witnessed them. It's one thing to hear it, it is another thing to witness it. Right. Their children heard of it, but they witnessed it. They witnessed their parents, some of their parents died. Their abbas died. Their children only heard of it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
We have to understand, once again, the importance of this, what is being said, the discourse of Moshe. He is preparing them for the promised land. But he is preparing them also that if they do not walk in truth and they do not adhere to the statutes and the commands of Yahuwah, they are going to find themselves without, and their children are going to be in the same position that they were in, without abbas. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to see these things. So we have to continue to look once again at what's taking place, so we don't fall prey. So we don't fall prey to the enemy and find ourselves losing out. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let us finish reading.
Verse 6, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
But your eyes have seen all the great acts of Yahuwah which he did. Therefore shall you keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that ye may be strong and go in and possess the land wherewith ye shall go to possess it, and that ye may prolong your days in the land which Yahuwah sware unto your fathers to give unto them, and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and honey. For the land whither thou goest in to possess it is not as the land of Mitzrayim, from whence ye came out, where thou sowest thy seed, and waterest it with thy foot as a garden of herbs. But the land whither thou goest to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of Shemayim. And it is so.
And it is. Now, once again, look how he's saying. He said, in other words, you're not going to have to work hard for this. You're not going to have to work hard for this. Y'all know how we work hard over here trying to get our gardens to maintain. We constantly trying to grab water. We go into the stream, grabbing water. Then sometimes the stream is dried up. Excuse me. Then sometimes the land is hard and we have to go and dig we have to cultivate it. We have to go in and we have to turn the soil over. Then we have to go and grab soil. Then we have to plant food. You have to do all this so that everything will maintain. There he's saying you won't have to do that because it's going to be taken care of. Are you following?
Yes.
When we have no rain, it won't water the plant. So what do we have to do? We have to find a way to get water. We have to go take our coolers. We have to go and take buckets and go and we have to fill it up. And then we have to come back and then we have to ration it out so that we can water our garden. We got 1, 2, 3 places to garden. And when there's not enough of water, what happens? One area has to be denied because there's not enough. So you have to decide which area you want to water. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important. Some people don't understand that because some people, they don't have to worry about those things.
Right.
Not that we worry, but we are seeing these things before our faces. He says, now listen what he says. For the land whither thou goest in to possess it is not as the land of Mitzrayim, from whence you came out, where thou didst sow thy seed, and didst water it with thy foot, as a garden of herbs. But the land whither you go over to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water as the rain of Shemayim cometh down. It drinks the rain when it comes. But there, they had to basically manually take the water to their gardens, like we do. When it doesn't rain, we're working nonstop. Almost sometime we do. We're working almost 24/6 because we rest on the Shabbat. Not 24/7. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Because we rest on the Shabbat, but we're constantly working. Are you following me? Why? Because we understand if we want to see our garden, if we want to see these things, we have to put the time in.
That's right.
He's saying you will, but you won't have to do it at a time where it's overbearing. And we work. Anybody that has a garden know you work, and especially if there's a storm that come through. When storms come through, it changes everything about gardening. It does. We weren't the only ones that were hit. It was other people that were hit during the first storm. And our prayers go out to them that Yahuwah would root them so that they can get things back in order. When storms come, those storms come, and even if they don't directly hit, the wind from them, you get debris and you get all kind of stuff blown your way. Trees bent all over, trees knocked down, and if not, you got so much stuff that's blown in over there. You got to work to get the stuff up. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And then the widow makers. You got to walk and be looking. Okay, make sure ain't nothing up in that tree. We saw a tree where we are at home. Look like, you know how when you thread a needle, it's that tree sticking in between trees, just like this. It was uprooted and it was threaded through some other trees, and it's sitting in it just like this. Storms come and they disrupt what you're doing as a gardener. So once again, this is what we're expecting. This is what we appreciate about Abba Yahuwah, because he's telling us you're not gonna have to work hard like that. Are you following me?
Yes.
A land which Yahuwah, thy Savior, careth for. The eyes of Yahuwah, thy Savior, are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. He's watching over it. That means, y'all, that we wouldn't have to worry about anything happening to it. And if something is about to happen, he'll do what? Prepare us for it.
That's right.
He'll prepare us for it. He'll make sure that the birds and with them things, the grasshoppers and them horrible crickets won't get to our stuff and devastate it. I hate them things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
They won't come and eat the stuff. Locusts, thank you, won't come and eat our vegetation and mess it up. And then, y'all, I didn't know ants. I knew they would do it, but ants will eat your beans up. They will eat them up. And we produced some beans, but not as much as I wanted to. But we were still learning. Ants, red and black ants, will get on where the pod is produced, and they'll break the flower off and they'll gnaw on where it comes and makes it really hard, and nothing can grow. So we would have to go through the garden thumping and pulling red ants off that are nice size. We'd have to go through pulling them off to make sure they wouldn't continue to devastate our garden. Because some of the stuff they tell you that gets rid of ants, if you're not careful, it'll destroy your garden. We didn't spray, what was that, vinegar? Vinegar water, they say that word, that wilted our plants. So we had to start over. I could have passed out when we sprayed and looked up there and our stuff was wilting like we were cooking it. Vinegar is very acidic. And no matter how much water we had in it and tried to dilute it, it wilted our leaves for our plants. So we had to regroup from that. So what I'm saying to you, we know from experience the trials and the trying that comes when you are gardening, and because you're doing it because you're trying to make a living. And then we're not just doing it for ourselves, we want to be able to help others. So this is important to understand what he's saying concerning this. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
He said, I will watch over it from year to year, from the beginning to the end. That's 3 seasons, y'all. No, 4 seasons, right? You have spring, summer, fall, and winter, right?
Yes.
Some you call autumn. But he will watch over it. This is important for us to understand. He will watch over all our vegetation during the seasons. Each season, our stuff will be protected. I believe he's going to protect it here because we're walking in obedience. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But we also know there's still going to be a level of work that has to be put out there while we're still here. And it is so. All right, let's read at verse 13.
5 verses.
Yes.
Verse 13 reads, And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to ahab Yahuwah your power, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather thy corn, and thy wine, and thine oil. And I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and ye not turn aside and serve other powers, and worship them. And Yahuwah's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up Shemayim, and there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, unless ye perish quickly from off the great land which Yahuwah your power giveth you.
And so 18, we gotta read verse 18. I'm sorry.
Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes.
And it is so. Frontlets between your eyes to what?
To
fall.
To bind to the mind. To fall. Bind to the mind. In other words, we give access to the Torah. We give the instructions of Abba Yahuwah access to our minds. Where do we process information? In our minds. How do we this is how we are, we intelligently receive information. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand, because we have to be able to, I don't want to say decipher, but we have to be able to understand how to process the information that is given, and you process it through your mind.
That's right.
You process it through your mind. And so this is why he's saying, look, I need you to get serious. I need you to walk in this walk. And I need you to understand that what will follow if you do what? He said, and it shall come to pass if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this yom, to Ahab Yahuwah, your Savior, and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give rain of your land, or will give the rain of your land in its season. In other words, you got to look at that. When it's time for rain in your season, I will give it to you in spite of, watch this, what's going on.
Right.
I will watch over it. Then he says, and I will give grass in thy field for thy cattle. If we have no grass and your cattle can't eat, then you can't have cattle.
Right.
Your cattle will die. It is a necessary food for cattle. And where we live, they have buffalo. I know it may seem like I took a tangent turn, but they have buffalo. You have to understand, in order to raise buffalo, you have to have some nice grass. You have to have that what they're able to eat. Now, these are people that are not the people. So how much more will Yahuwah do for us, even over here in the land of our enemies?
Right.
Preparing us so when we go home. So it's important that we understand, by walking in obedience and complying to his instructions, he will baruch us and he will watch over what we have. Now listen what he says. Now this is, we always look at the great part, but then you have to also look at the negative part that comes with it. And I will give grass in thy field for thy cattle, and thou shalt eat and be satisfied. That's the positive. Take heed to yourselves, lest your heart be deceived. That's the negative. And you turn aside and serve other power and worship them. The warning is coming because it would be easy for them to do, because they had done it so many times before. Yahuwah never addresses anything, and even Yahush never addressed anything that didn't need to be addressed. Anything that is addressed means that it has been and it will become a problem if we don't tend to it.
Right.
If we don't tend to it. Very important for us to understand. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And it is so. All right. Let us read. We're at verse, you read all the way to 18, right?
Yes.
All right, let's read 19.
19 and 25, or 19 and 24?
19. You read 19 to, you're reading 5, 24. To 25. Yeah, because that'll cool.
And you shall teach them your children, speaking of them, when you sittest in thine house, and when you walkest by the way, and when you liest down, and when you rise up.
Now, let me allude to this. and you shall teach them your children. Now you understand who he is telling to teach the children. He is telling the children of the children of those parents who died in their time of disobedience. He's saying, now teach your children truth. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Teach them truth. He's telling them no matter where you are, if you're laying down, talk about it. When you rise up, talk about it. The emphasis is on teaching them so that they do not perish. We don't want our children to perish. We want them to thrive. You want them to thrive. You want them to prosper. But they can't prosper outside of truth. Very important for us to understand. He's telling them that. All right, now, let me step back up to verse 18 real quick. Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and you shall bind them for a sign and give access, as I said before. It's important that we really understand this because we give access to so many other things. We give our mind, give access, other things access to our mind, but that what can truly build us up, build our confidence up, and build our belief up in Yahuwah. Many times we give too much other stuff access to our minds instead of giving the Torah access. We have to learn. You cannot allow anything else to come up in there, because if we do, we will suffer being banished. We will suffer being pushed outside. We will find ourselves going back into all these other things because we forget. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Can't forget. We have to remember. And then we have to make sure our children remember. You have to make sure your children remember.
That's right.
Remember what? Truth. Well, how can they remember something they never had? Then you make them know it to remember it.
That's right.
It's important that we understand that. All right, let's read.
You shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon their gates, that your day may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which Yahuwah swore unto your fathers to give to them, as the days of Shemaim upon the earth. For if you shall diligently keep all these commandments, which I commanded you to do them, to have and keep your commandments of Yahuwah, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave unto him, then will Yahuwah drive out all these nations from before you, and you shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours. From the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the uttermost sea, shall be your coast. There shall no man be able to stand before you. For Yahuwah your power shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that you shall tread upon, as he has said unto you. And it is so.
And it is so. In your heart to reflect upon them, and in your soul to obey them willingly. Very important for us to understand. Once again, in your heart to reflect upon them, and in your soul to obey them willingly. We don't have to be made to obey. It is our will that we obey. It is our desire to obey. Talking of them. To talk of them from the time a child can speak, the Abba should, and not just the Abba, the Ima, should instruct him or her in the Ibram language and the Torah. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
This is why it's important that we learn our native language. And that's what I'm doing, learning. I'm learning, y'all. That's one of them things you have to really go in, and English is like a parasite. It is, because once you learn English, you have to unlearn it. And it's one of the hardest languages to learn, but it's also one of the hardest languages to unlearn. You got to go in there, and we got to learn our language, and learn how to speak the language of Yahuwah, and learn the Torah. This is why we do what we do. This is why I do what I do, because I'm commanded to do so.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
You know, there was a song that Mary sung, I'm a believer. A believer of what? I'm a believer of the Torah. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
I am a believer of the Torah. I am a believer of it. I believe it with my heart, with my life, with my energy. I believe the Torah. And if we're going to live and make it, it's important that we understand these things. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's very important that we understand these things. Now, once again, to walk in his ways, once again, to ahab him, in your heart. You know, because people can ahab with their mouths. You can speak of him with your lips, but your heart be far from him. You know how when you know you're ahabing because you want to know more about him and you just want to sing him. You do. You want to make sure you're pleasing him. You want to make sure that everything you're reading about him, you're understanding it. And if you're misunderstanding, please, Yahuwah, help me not to misinterpret your writings. You like Yahuwah, you're my teacher, you're my God. Please don't let me mess up and mess up. I walked in error for so long. I don't want to walk in error now that I'm in truth. You don't want to be a bearer of truth but still walking in error.
Sorry.
I don't want to do that. No. If you shall diligently keep, if not, you will not conquer the land and enter it. To walk in all his ways by imitating his attributes of mercy and kindness. Very important unto us. We have to hold on to him, to cleave unto him. All your actions should have the one aim to do the will of Yahuwah, to be steadfast in allegiance to Yahuwah and not lapse into idolatry. It also implies constant reflection upon him. Once again, we cannot be vacillating. Here today, I want to be it. Next day, I don't. I get around other people and I get to see in my situation, and now I don't want to be in this because I'm drawn to what I see other people doing. Even when you all by yourself, you still have to make up your mind that you're going to serve him.
That's right.
Even when there is nobody that wants to walk in agreement with you, you still have to walk and serve him. Very important for us to understand. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
Cleave to him. All of our actions. How much of our actions?
All of them.
It should have one aim to do the will of Yahuwah. Everything we do ought to yet still be directed towards following him and towards doing his will, no matter what. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
No matter what. There shall be no man that shall be able to stand against you within the area of the boundaries defined in the preceding verse. The fear of Yahuwah. The noun implies a long-felt apprehension and relates to faraway nations. Dread denotes a sudden panic and release to the nations nearby. In other words, it's like, we can't mess with them people. We have to leave them alone. Only Yahuwah can do that. Only he can do it, but he can only do it through our obedience. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, now let us turn our attention to Yashayah, which is Isaiah chapter 49. And we're going to be starting at verse 14. And it's going to take us all the way into chapter 51, verse 3. 17.
Chapter
49. Verse 14. Let's read 7.
But Zion said, Yahuwah has forsaken me, and my sovereign has forgotten me. Can a woman forget her second child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yes, they may forget, yet will I not forget you. Behold, I have graven you upon the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. Your children shall make haste, your destroyers, and they that made you waste shall go forth of you. Lift up your eyes round about, and behold, all these that gather themselves together and come to you. As I live, says Yahuwah, and surely clothe you with them all as with an ornament, and bind them on you as a bride does. For your waste, and your desolate places, and the land of your destruction shall even now be too narrow by reason of the inhabitants, and they that swallowed you up shall be far away. The children whom you shall have after you have lost the others shall say again in your ears, the place is too narrow for me. Give place to me that I may dwell. And it is so.
And it is so. But Zion said, or to Sion said, behold the deliverance, before the deliverance took place. This is before the deliverance took place. Now her sucking child, a mother's tenderest, a hob is devoted to her infant and its helplessness. Now even if you look at where it says, can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb or even daughter of her womb, yea, these may forget. See, there's a possibility that women will forget their children, but Yahuwah will never forget us. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Alluding to showing us the tenderness of an Ema, but at the same time, she or we can forget, but Yahuwah will never forget. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to see this and make the comparison. He's saying, yeah, you have them that will forget, and you have those that will not forget. But I never will. Don't worry about it, because I'm not going to forget you. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's very important for us to understand that he's not going to. Yea, these may forget. These are mothers who abandon their young, but Yahuwah will never forsake Yasharal. And you have mothers that do forsake their children. You have people that give birth and they put their children up for adoption. And then you have those that have them and still forget. They forget that they were once a part of them. And even when they were young, they detached themselves from them. So these things were being shown, and some people would ask, how can a person do that? I don't know, because I never could, and I never will. Are y'all following me? In spite of how things have gone, I never will. And there are some things, like I say, can break your heart to itty bitty tiny pieces, to where it's like, if it gets stepped on again, it won't be anything left. But even at that, you still understand, I can't forget what I carried for 9 months. I can't forget that. I can't forget. And it's not just the pain. You know, everybody was talking about, boy, for 24 hours, I was in labor with you. One of my sons, I was in labor for a whole week with one of my sons, my second oldest son. I was in labor for a whole week for my second oldest son. My oldest son, I was in labor for 48 hours. Hard labor. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But I can still never forget them. We always, sometimes people think of the negative. What about the positive, when you feel them kicking and moving and counting toes? And seeing ultrasounds. Are y'all following me? Yes. And you're feeling, the movement, and you're feeling life. And even when they were tiny and they didn't know anything about the things they follow up in now, and they sitting there looking at you, the big old eyes, and you see the cards that have been written for years. I'll never forget them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
When you look back over the cards and they say, you and me forever together. The little booger people. People with the biggest heads in the world and the tiniest feet and little skinny hands and arms. And they say all those things and they make promises. But as an Ema, you make a promise and you never ever thwart or change that promise. Because you understand you made that promise out of your emotions, because you were excited and because you were thrilled, because you weren't being chastised because of your errors and your wrongdoing. But we as Emas, regardless of how we face certain things come at us, real Emas, you don't forget, and you just don't focus on the negative. You focus on the positive. Are you following me?
Yes.
When they go out and bring you them little flowers, and by the time they get to you, they look to, I brought this for you. And you look at it, oh, that's so precious, and it's already dead. But it's the thought that counts. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
It is the thought that counts. And they give you, you can have a piece of candy, and you look at that candy and be like, oh, where'd you get that piece from? That must have came right out of your mouth. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
And you hear people say, I ain't gonna ever drink or eat after them. As soon as they have it, they bring a sucker that's been slobbed on it, and it's all over there. You take it in, you kiss the side of that sucker that ain't too sloppy. You say, I'll never do that, but you did. And you kiss that sucker, and you said, boy, that was the best thing I ever had. They say, you want some more? No, thank you. I'm full. But you do it. Are you following me?
Yes.
And you don't forget. But even in that, Yahuwah is greater. Because he's showing us, I won't forget. You could be the greatest imam in the world, and then you could think you're the worst imam in the world. But when it's all said and done, remember, Yahuwah will never forget us. Never. He will never, ever forget us. And this is one of the things that is important for us to remember. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Why? Because upon the palm of my hands, Yahuwah is always mindful of his people as though their likeness was engraved on his hands. That means, that tells us he has hands. So every time he looks at his hands, he remembers us. He remembers us. Are you following me?
Yes.
He remembers us. Now, many people would probably say, well, you know, this is you something. But when you look at a stretch mark, those are marks that cause you to remember. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Everybody does not stretch like everybody. Everybody does not, but there are times that you do. And those stretch marks make you remember. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand certain things. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
It relates to us because we carry the child for 9 months. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So we're showing that these things are important. But even in this, no matter how great we may be or think we are, Yahuwah is greater. And he will never, ever forget us. I truly want that to be embedded in our hearts. He will never, ever forget us. Never. Never, never. No matter what we've done, he will never forget us. Now, he will chastise us. But it's up to us to stand up and say, you know what, I deserve that. I deserve that because I know I was out of order. I know I didn't do what I was supposed to. But not rebel and get angry and run off and go doing everything else. Very important for us to understand that. Make haste to return. Lift up thine eyes round about. For Sion's scattered children will return from all directions. From all directions. Yahuwah is going to gather us back. I believe it with all my heart. And this is why we have to be patient and not get ahead of ourselves and start doing things that's not of Yahuwah. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let's read. Mm-hmm.
Then shalt thou say in thine heart, Who hath begotten me these, seeing I have lost my children and am desolate, a captive and a moving to and fro? Who hath brought up these? Behold, I was left alone. These, where had they been? Thus said Yahuwah of power, Behold, I will lift up my hand to the Gentiles, and set up my standard to the people. And they shall bring thy sons in their arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders. And kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am Yahuwah, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captive delivered? But thus saith Yahuwah, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. For I will contend with him that contendeth with thee, and I will save thy children. And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And all flesh shall know that I am Yahuwah, that I, Yahuwah, am your Savior, your Redeemer, the mighty one of Yaakov.
And it is so. Very important. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Very important. And he says, verse 26, and I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And you know, anybody that drinks sweet wine, you drink it and drink it and drink it, because it just be so great to the palate, and you drink it, and you get married with and you go on, right? Hear me?
Yes.
Because you enjoy that taste. He said that's the way they're gonna be drunk, off of their own blood. They're gonna consume it and consume it and consume it, because it tastes so great. And all flesh shall know that I, Yahuwah, am thy Savior. And all flesh, that means no matter where you are, if you are flesh, all flesh will know. All flesh will know that I am your Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Yaakov. Chapter 50, let us read. Let us read, let's do 5 verses.
Chapter 50, starting at verse 1.
Yes.
Thus says Yahuwah, where is the certificate of your mother's divorce, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Look, you were sold for your crookedness, and your mother was put away for your transgressions. When I came, why was there no one? When I called, why was there no one to answer? Was my hand too short to redeem? Or have I no power to deliver? See, my rebuke, I dry up the sea. See, by my rebuke, I dry up the sea. I make the rivers a wilderness. Their fish stink, for there is no water, and die of thirst. I clothe the heavens with darkness, and I make sackcloth their covering. The Master Yahuwah has given me the tongue of taught ones, that I should know to help the weary with the word. He makes me rising by rising. He wakes my ear to hear as taught ones. Verse 5. The Master Yahuwah has opened my ear, and I was not rebellious, nor did I turn away. And it is so.
And it is so. Now listen what he says. Where is the bill of your mother's divorcement? The people of Yehuda had not been finally rejected by Yahuwah, and their banishment to Babylon was only temporary. Jeremiah's apparently statement, I had put away and given her a bill of divorcement, Jeremiah 3 and 8, refers to the northern kingdom which has not returned from the exile and whose king will not rule again. Once again, we will become one nation, and we will have one king that will rule over us. That is us. We have not been brought back yet.
That's right.
Are you hearing me? What is happening now is the recovery. I told you, those of you that follow my teachings, Yahuwah gave me in the very beginning when I first started walking in truth, recovery, restoration, and true revival. We're in a time of recovering of who we are and recovering of our people, our language, and recovering of truth. The next is restoration. And once we are restored, everything, reviving of our land, reviving of us, that what belongs to us. And so it is important that we understand these things so that we can live according to the instructions that he's given unto us as his people. Very important for us to understand we are that people. Behold, at my rebuke, I dry up the sea. The delay is not due to the lack of power on Yahuwah's part to redeem us. His infinitive might was revealed when he dried up the Red Sea and the Jordan. Once again, it's not that he can't do it now, but he was preparing all of us to be ready to go, not just a few. That's why it behooves us to get right.
That's right.
And be united. I clothe the Shemayim with blackness, a reference to the plague of darkness which Yahuwah brought upon Mitzrayim. He wakened my ear. Not only was I equipped with a fluent tongue, but also with a sensitive ear. This is one of the things we must always ask Abba Yahuwah for, a sensitive ear. Because without a sensitive ear, we cannot hear. You have people that have eloquent speech. You have people that can talk. You have people that can do all these things. But without a sensitive ear, it means nothing. Who is that sensitive ear towards? Yahuwah. And if you hear Yahuwah, then you're going to hear Yahush. And if you hear Yahush, then you're going to hear his sent ones. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Let's read. We stopped at verse 5. Let's read verse 6.
Verse 6. I offered my to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard. I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. Because the sovereign Savior helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore have I set my face like flint, and I know I will not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. Who then will bring charges against me? Let us face each other. Who is my accuser? Let him confront me. It is the sovereign power who helps me. Who is he that will condemn me?
Mm-hmm.
They will all wear out like a garment. The moths will eat them up. Who among you fears Yahuwah and obeys the word of his servant? Let him who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of Yahuwah and rely on his power. And it is so.
And it is so. I gave my back to the smiters. Listen what he says. Although I knew that I would be treated with contempt by the people, I accepted the mission. Mission accepted. Mission accepted. We accept the mission that Yahuwah gives unto us. It's not one that you can disregard or say, oh, I don't want it. When it is given to you and you are truly seeking to know him, you accept it. You accept everything that comes along with it, the ostracism, the criticism, the rejection, and not just from people outside, but for people that say they're inside. You get talked about, you get overlooked. You get basically, you're treated like you don't exist. But you have to understand it goes along with the territory. It goes along with it. And because we understand, we don't reject the mission. Mission accepted. We accept the things that come. You accept where people will be with you for a season and then people will leave. And you accept where people will come and then people act like they don't know you. Are y'all hearing me? I'm serious. So you have to understand, mission accepted. And he knew what was going to happen. People treated him with contempt, and people treated him really, really, really bad. We know how they treated Yahush. We know how they treated the prophets. And so we have to understand these things. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. All right. I know that I shall not be ashamed in delivering my messages, because I know that they will be fulfilled. We don't have to be ashamed, because whatever he tells us to say, have to be ashamed, because whatever he tells us to say and whatever he tells us to do, if it is him, it's going to come to pass. And it's going to be fulfilled.
Yes.
And it is so.
Yes.
All right. Let us read.
Verse 11. Behold, all ye that kindle a fire, and compass yourselves about with sparks, walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks that ye have kindled. This shall ye have of mine hand, you shall lie down in sorrow. Verse chapter 51. 1 to 3 or verse 3?
1 to 3.
Chapter 51, verse 1. Hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek Yahuwah. Look unto Look unto Abraham your Abba, and unto Sarah your Emma, that bare you. For I called him alone, and bereaved him, and increased him. For Yahuwah shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places, and he will make her a wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of Yahuwah. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody.